Liam Rosén is standing in front of the cameras at Cobham. The questions are coming at him from every direction. Goalkeeper controversies, injury updates, tactical philosophy, the Wrexham Cup tie, and looming just over the horizon, Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League round of 16. This is not a man under pressure. This is a man who knows exactly what he is doing. What came out of that press conference was not a collection of vague football platitudes. It was a masterclass in controlled communication from a head coach who has clearly thought deeply about every single aspect of his squad, his selection policy and his tactical approach to the weeks ahead. And what Owen Hargreaves said about Chelsea heading into the PSG tie, that adds an entirely different layer of intrigue to this story. Because the situation is this, Chelsea are not going into the Champions League knockout rounds as unknowns. They are not a side that PSG will be studying for the first time. And crucially, the man managing them has already beaten Luis Enrique once, drawn with him once, and only lost to him once in competitive football, with a significantly weaker squad than the one he now has at his disposal. Let that sit with you for a moment before we go further. If you want analysis at this level on every Chelsea story that matters, hit that subscribe button right now. The Maya on Chelsea channel is where you come for the full picture, not the headlines. Now let us get into it properly. Here is what is at stake across the next 7 to 10 days for Chelsea. First, there is Saturday evening's FA Cup fifth round tie away at Wrexham. It sounds simple. Chelsea are the favourites. Chelsea are expected to win. But football does not run on expectations, and Rosén himself acknowledged exactly that in his press conference. He was explicit. He called it a really, really difficult game. He acknowledged the energy, the momentum and the atmosphere that surrounds Wrexham right now as a club on the rise through the divisions. So if Chelsea go to North Wales and take this lightly, the consequences are significant. An FA Cup exit would remove one of their realistic opportunities to win silverware this season. And for a head coach who was brought in to deliver trophies at a club of Chelsea's size, that matters enormously. But then there is the bigger picture beyond Wrexham. The Champions League round of 16 against Paris Saint-Germain is approaching fast. The first leg is in Paris, away from home in the Parc des Princes against one of the strongest clubs in Europe under Luis Enrique. And then if Chelsea advance, the path through the draw takes them into a potential quarter-final against either Galatasaray or Liverpool. The financial stakes alone are eye-opening. The reality for the club is that they have already generated £80 million from this season's Champions League campaign. And that figure could rise as high as £101.7 million if Chelsea go all the way to the final and win it. That is the size of the prize on the table, and that is why what happens at Wrexham on Saturday and what happens in Paris next week could define the entire trajectory of this Chelsea season. If you want to keep up with every twist in this Chelsea story, including the Champions League journey and the key decisions Rosén is making right now, subscribe to Maya on Chelsea. New analysis posted regularly. Click the subscribe button below. Now let us continue. Let us go through everything Rosén said and everything the situation tells us about where Chelsea are right now. Starting with the injury picture. Estevão is back on the grass. That is confirmed. He is training again. But Rosén was careful and precise in how he described that situation. He said Estevão needs to clear a few more markers before he is ready to be selected. The reason for that caution is important. It was a hamstring injury. And with hamstring injuries, the risk of rushing a player back and suffering a more serious setback is very real. Rosén described the need to be really, really careful. That is not vague language. That is a head coach who has thought about this and is prioritising the long-term availability of an important player over the short-term temptation to use him. The implication of this is that Estevão will not feature against Wrexham. He will be building toward the Champions League matches and beyond. When he does return, Rosén described it as a big boost to have him back in the group, which tells you how highly rated this player is in the current squad structure. Then there is Jamie Gittens. The news on Gittens is genuinely positive. Rosén confirmed he had a really positive scan and that within the next 7 days he could be back in group training. That timeline places his potential return right in the window of the Champions League first leg. If Gittens comes back fit and sharp, that is another attacking option Rosén can call upon at a critical moment in the season. And Romeo Lavia, this is one of the most interesting parts of the press conference. Rosén was emphatic about Lavia. He said, and listen to this carefully, Romeo will definitely play a part and he will play a huge part for the rest of the season. That is a very deliberate statement. That is not a manager saying a player will get his chance eventually. That is a manager signalling that this player is going to be central to what happens next. Rosén also said Lavia will play in his next few games. So the plan is clear. Lavia is being integrated into the squad in a managed, structured way. He has been itching to play. He is ready, and now his time is coming. The fact that Rosén is bringing Lavia in at this point in the season, with the Champions League knockout rounds beginning, tells you something important about Chelsea's midfield strategy heading into the biggest games. Now, let us talk about the goalkeeper situation, because this is genuinely fascinating. Philippe Jørgensen played against Aston Villa. Robert Sanchez was left out. That is a significant selection call, and it generated questions in the press conference, which Rosén addressed directly and with total clarity. His philosophy on the goalkeeper position is clear. He does not believe in a fixed number one. He does not believe in automatic selection. He believes in competition in every area of the pitch. He was explicit about that. He said it is not the case that a goalkeeper change makes one man the automatic number one. He picks the team he believes gives Chelsea the best chance of winning each specific game. Now, that is either a manager who is completely confident in that philosophy, or it is a manager carefully managing two goalkeepers and keeping both of them engaged and motivated. Either way, the approach appears to be working, because consider how Sanchez responded to being left out. Rosén described it in detail. He said Sanchez was naturally disappointed, which is expected and understandable. But the way he responded in training afterward, the way he supported Jørgensen during the warm-up, the way he conducted himself in the dressing room, Rosén used the word magnificent more than once. That is a squad mentality that is worth a great deal. And Rosén drew a parallel with Alejandro Garnacho. He mentioned Garnacho by name as another player who has responded to not being selected with the right attitude and the right mentality. When a manager starts pointing to specific players as examples of how the group is behaving, that is a signal. That is a manager who values culture as much as quality. The evidence suggests Chelsea are building something with a foundation that goes beyond individual talent. Let us move on to the Wrexham game itself. Rosén has seen the documentary. He acknowledged it directly. He said he has seen a few episodes, and his assessment of what Wrexham have built is respectful and genuine. He praised Phil Parkinson for the job he has done. He acknowledged the position Wrexham are in the Championship table. He described the energy and the vibe around the club as something that is genuinely hard to play against. That is important context, because Rosén is not treating this as a routine cup tie. He went back to previous FA Cup performances in his tenure and specifically mentioned the games against Charlton and Hull as benchmarks. He said what pleased him most in those games was the application of the players. He described Chelsea as excellent in those ties. And he said Chelsea will need to be at the same level, at least, to win against Wrexham. The word "at least" is doing a lot of work in that sentence. It tells you Rosén expects a difficult evening. He also addressed the narrative around Chelsea being the villains of the piece when they go to North Wales. He accepted it completely. He said that is what football is about. That is what the FA Cup is about. And then he said something revealing. He said Chelsea need to be respectful of that, but they also need to go and play like favourites, because that is what they are. There is a self-awareness there that is impressive. Rosén understands the optics of a wealthy, high-profile club going to Wrexham in the FA Cup. He is not running from that story. He is acknowledging it and using it as motivation to perform. Now, the squad rotation philosophy. Rosén said something that is worth examining carefully. He stated that he has not named the same starting 11 in any game during his time at Chelsea. Not one. That is a deliberate strategy. He described it as the club's idea as well as his own. The goal is to build a squad that can win trophies, and to do that you need to rotate, because the volume of games Chelsea are playing is enormous. He made a reference to Chelsea having played over 100 games in a short space of time, connecting back to the Club World Cup period. That is an extraordinary workload for any squad, and it explains why depth, competition and rotation are not just philosophical preferences for Rosén, but practical necessities. This also means that the Wrexham team sheet could look quite different from the 11 that started against Aston Villa. Rosén has already confirmed that Lavia will play a part. Jørgensen could keep his place, or Sanchez could return. The squad will be managed with the PSG first leg in mind. Let us talk about Joao Pedro. The transformation of Joao Pedro under Rosén is one of the most compelling storylines at Chelsea right now. When asked what he's done to unlock this version of the player, Rosén gave an answer that was thoughtful and grounded. He said his conversations with Joao since he arrived have been honest and encouraging. He described Joao as a player with huge potential who has been delivering on it consistently in recent performances. But he was careful to redirect the credit. He said it is not really about what I have done, it is about what he has done. That is a manager who is careful not to take credit from his players. And it says something about the relationship Rosén is building within that dressing room. But then he explains something tactically that is genuinely interesting. He said Chelsea tried to create the best chances possible for their attackers in the middle of the goal, 6 yards out. And he pointed to the goals against Aston Villa as examples of that. He called them tap-ins. But his point was that a player has to be in the right place at the right time to score tap-ins. And Joao Pedro is now doing that consistently. The situation is that Joao Pedro is not just scoring. He is pressing with intensity. He is understanding the tactical structure. He is in the right positions at the right moments. Rosén described his contributions as not just goals, but also his intensity, his understanding of press and his tactical awareness. That is a complete striker contribution, not just a clinical finisher. Now, let us bring it back to the PSG conversation, because this is where the bigger picture really comes together. Owen Hargreaves made a point that deserves serious attention. He highlighted the fact that Rosén has faced PSG 3 times already, once at the Parc des Princes, where he lost 4 goals to 2, once at home, where Strasbourg beat them 2 goals to 1, ending an unbeaten away run that had stretched across 40 games, and once again in Paris, where Strasbourg led 3 goals to 1 before eventually drawing 3 goals to 3. Think about what that tells you. Rosén knows how PSG set up. He knows how Luis Enrique organises his press, his structure, his transitions. He has sat in the dugout opposite this team and found ways to compete, to create chances and to get results. His one win against PSG was achieved with Strasbourg. Now he has Cole Palmer, he has Estevão, he has Netto, he has Joao Pedro in the form of his career. He has André Santos, who Hargreaves specifically praised. He has Moises Caicedo. The evidence suggests that if Rosén had a little plan against PSG with Strasbourg, the little plan he is building with Chelsea's squad could be considerably more dangerous. Hargreaves put it exactly that way. He said, imagine Liam now has much better players. And that is the key point. The tactical knowledge is already there. The familiarity with the opponent is already there. What has changed is the quality of the tools available. And Chelsea are not just going into this tie as hopefuls. They are going in with genuine belief, genuine quality, and a manager who has proven he can find a way to disrupt Luis Enrique's system. Let us also address the Liam Delap question, because it gives important balance to this analysis. Rosén was asked about whether Delap is fully over his hamstring injury, given that Joao Pedro has taken such a central role. His answer was careful and precise. He confirmed Delap is 100% fit. He also pointed out that Delap's last appearance produced 3 assists. That is a significant contribution for any player coming off the bench or stepping into a starting role. The reality for the squad is that Delap and Joao Pedro represent different but complementary options in attack. Rosén was clear that he does not see them as rivals. He sees them as players with different individual strengths who will each get their opportunities. He said he expects Delap to take his chances when they come, and he expressed confidence that Delap will do exactly that. This is a manager who is managing egos and expectations in a way that keeps everyone invested and focused. That is not a small thing when you have a squad of this size and quality. Let us also note what Rosén said about Arsenal and Mikel Arteta's style of play. He was asked directly about the noise surrounding Arsenal's approach to the game. His response was measured and diplomatic, but also revealing. He said Arsenal are a very good team. He said they are very well organised in every aspect of the game. And then he made a broader philosophical point. He said the beautiful thing about football is that you can play any way you want to play as long as you believe in it. He did not criticise. He did not judge. He said he does not judge any other team. And he said you have to find a way to adapt and overcome whatever system you face. That is the language of a tactically flexible manager. A manager who does not have a rigid system that he imposes, regardless of the opponent. He adapts. He prepares specifically for each game. And that adaptability is exactly what Chelsea are going to need in the Champions League knockout rounds, where the opponents change and the margins are tight, bringing this all together. The picture that emerges from this press conference and from the broader context around this Chelsea team right now is of a club that is genuinely building something. The squad has depth. The culture is strong. The injured players are returning at the right time. The manager understands his personnel and is using competition across every position to keep standards high. And the head coach has a proven record of competing against the very opponent that now stands in Chelsea's path in the Champions League. The FA Cup tie against Wrexham is the immediate test. Rosén has been clear that it will not be easy. He has been clear that Chelsea need to perform at a high level to advance. And he has been clear that winning trophies is exactly why he is at this club. But beyond Wrexham, the PSG tie represents a genuine opportunity, not just for progression in the competition, not just for the financial rewards that come with advancing to the quarter-finals, but as a statement from Liam Rosén that he belongs at this level, that his tactical knowledge, his man management and his preparation are good enough to take Chelsea deep into the most important club competition in European football. The evidence is building, the form is there, the squad is coming together at the right time. And if Chelsea go to the Parc des Princes and impose themselves on PSG the way Rosén Strasbourg side did, then this story is going to get a lot bigger very quickly. That is the analysis. Thank you for watching Maya on Chelsea. If this level of breakdown is what you want on every major story, subscribe below. Leave a comment with your thoughts on Chelsea's chances against PSG, and I will see you in the next one.